Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our webinar series, Embracing Change. We have Barbara with us today from Italy. Thank you, Barbara, for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you very much, Feisal, for having me.
So Barbara is going to walk us through step number 6, which is about relationships, and give us an insight as to what are some of the core elements that when someone is going through the 8 steps of discovery during step 6, what are some of the key factors that Barbara starts to begin the process of introspection and reflection. So let's start very simple, Barbara, if you don't mind. So what does the story driving your life mean? And why is that important as one of the key elements?
Well, we all have a story to tell about ourselves, about who we are, about our life and how we live. And we can imagine this story as a movie that we are creating and that we have created for ourselves. And we live within this movie. So it becomes extremely important to become aware of the kind of movie and story we have been living and we have been creating, so we can expand outside that story. And oftentimes we are not really aware of what is our story because we are so used to tell it to everybody and to perfect it and to make it that it makes sense for people we are living with, for ourselves, that we don't even recognize it. It is the famous metaphor of the fish being in the water. So what the fish is not aware of the water, right? So the question become, am I aware of my own water, the water I live within? And that is the story, and that is important because the water keeps the water keeps the fish alive, and our story somehow dictate our life and how we live it, and it keeps somehow us alive. So we want to be aware of that story that we are in.
So obviously, so are we the director? Are we the script writer? Are we the producer? Or are we all of them? Or sometimes are we not aware and somebody else is doing it for us?
Exactly. That is why it becomes important to know about it, because we can be the director or we can just simply be actors and somebody else is directing our lives, some events or people or circumstances. And the reason why it becomes important to know our stories and become aware of it is exactly because we want to be the director and perhaps the producers, because we can also invest in something new and create something different. Or maybe we do not like the ending that is inside, and so we can change the ending somehow, right? That is very important and inspires us more to live, to be the director and producers than just being the actor.
Are you challenging God and the universe by saying that we want to try and control the ending of the story, Barbara? You might no. Turn this webinar into a very blasphemous experience.
Of course not. That's not what I mean. At the same time, I want to empower ourselves. I want us to think and believe that we do have a say on the quality of the life we are living, and we can make an effort and we can really commit to create and build the best possible outcome that we can imagine. And that's why it becomes very important to see that the life and the story we're telling and the life we're living does have a direction, and it does have a goal, and whether we choose it or not, we are moving towards a direction. And so it is better to be in charge as much as possible, not because we want to control, because there are so many elements that impact our lives, but we do want to have a say in the way we live and how we live, with whom we live, and what we make our best to bring into our lives. So in this sense, we are not at all God, but we can contribute powerfully.
Okay, so let's look at, I mean, obviously there must be stories that empower and there's stories that disempower.
Yeah.
Right? So that are creating possibility and some that are limiting possibility.
Yes.
Maybe you want to share some examples or a reflection on that?
I would like to, maybe a point that can be interesting to look at is that, speaking of empowering or disempowering stories, if we are not aware, for example, that the life we are living and the narrative we are in is the one that, for example, our family has lived, and somehow we have just embraced it without being aware of it. And let's say your family always wanted you to be a doctor, right? And here you go, you are studying to be a doctor, or you are a doctor right now, and somehow it is not really fulfilling as a life. But hey, that's what you have always thought. You have always been told this, and here you are, now you are practicing. And still there is something that it is not quite aligned somehow deep in yourself. So that is a story and a narrative that deserves to be explored. Even if you are 50, 60, 40, doesn't matter. It deserves to be explored because you want to get closer to what you want to choose, and a story that becomes empowering towards who you are fully. You might be a good doctor, but you could be a great gardener of villas, right? So you want to be awareness of, is it what I'm living my own choice? Is it actually my own choice? And you might, this exploration is worthy because you might discover that you actually love to be a doctor. You just needed to be empowered and feel it as your own choice, and not as a default decision that just happened to be for you because you belong to a family of very renowned and great doctors, right? So I believe that awareness, knowledge, discernment of the life we are living, who we are, the relationship we have, and where we stand in our world is important, because it unleashes our motivation, our passion, our vitality, and that becomes important.
I'm glad that Anissa is step 5 before step 6, because she, as you know and aware, because she's working with you, and looks at the beliefs and patterns is what you're speaking to, right? The generational patterns, and looking at, when did you make that choice? Did you make that choice? Where was the influence of that choice? What was the event that may have triggered that choice, right? And of course, there are some patriarchs on the call who may challenge you and say, well, please, let's not have my 50-year-old now switch careers. So maybe you may want to remind them they could be part-time gardeners, right? They don't have to become full-time gardeners.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And they might even decide that being a gardener is a hobby. What is important is the awareness, so that you can actually be clear in your choices and what you want to do, instead of what you feel forced or you feel like you have to do. So it is a level of freedom. In knowledge, there is freedom, right? I can accept that I am a doctor, and now I am 60 and I've been a doctor, and it was probably or potentially not my 100% first choice. But I am a good doctor, so you can remain a good doctor, and you can start picking up gardening, because then you are free, and you made yourself free to experience that part of yourself as well. So definitely, there is always something different and more compared to what we are already doing and being, that we can become. And that is enriching at any age. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was asked at the age of, I think, 14 or 15, what I wanted to be. And I said part-time businessman and part-time doctor. And I had a father who breathed, slept, dreamt, all of the things about business, but there was a part of me that wanted to be a doctor. And interestingly, of course, I went and became an entrepreneur. And here I am today running the world's first family health office. So I'm kind of going back to square one. My dad is questioning whether I'm still a businessman or not, but we'll leave that for another conversation.
Absolutely, because when we have something that is rooted deeply within us and it is part of who we are, it is really natural. It is as if it keeps knocking from inside, and until we open somehow, in some form, it keeps knocking at our inner door. And so we better be wise and somehow answer, being it in a conscious way or unconscious way, and the ways and the path to that to that ending are multiple. So, but we do need to respond to those inner calls.
Yeah, my inner call was very dramatic. So
Yeah.
I didn't have much choice but to listen. Well, actually, I still had a choice, but I chose to listen so that I would have a chance to be here today. So
Yes, yes, and unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time, for many of us, we are deaf until we are not, because the situation is so dramatic or so challenging that we cannot avoid it anymore.
yeah,
We want to learn to make that choice and that shift a little bit earlier. We want to do that.
we can have a little more smoother experience, not so
Relationships,
much
yeah.
drama.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Okay, so that's one element. Anything on the other side, maybe on the positive side, or I mean,
In terms of empowering
yes,
stories and thoughts, yes. On the other side, well, this is not a negative, is the possibility to
yeah,
expand, right? And actually I would say the same approach is on the positive, because when we tend to be happy about our own story and our own narrative, we stop being curious and we stop challenging ourselves. I'm not saying that we cannot be relaxed and stay where we are. I'm saying that at least have the curiosity of exploring if there is something different that can integrate and perhaps complete a little bit more our life and who we are, so that we are not caught off guard by event that we didn't even see coming. They will always be there, but I think that having a healthy curiosity, not as an obsession of wanting to be more and different, but a healthy curiosity and making sure, am I investigating, and am I observing enough? Am I listening enough to what's going on around me? Am I paying attention to people in a way that can actually bring something to my life that I'm not noticing? So it is a gentle and and yet alerted way of living your life that doesn't need to bring you stress or put you under pressure, but it is a healthy way to be aware that there is so much more than who we are and we think we are, and the life we are living, even if it looks like it is the perfect life. It is as if, when I'm saying this, allow me to say this, Faisal. I was reading once a biography on Beethoven, and it was saying that Beethoven, the musician, the composer, brought the line of music that he was involved with to its end. So after Beethoven, there needed to be something new, something different, new paradigms for music. And so I think that our lives, when they look like they are perfect and then they are going so well, somehow they have reached the end of that stream, right? And so we want to be curious, alert, and we want to be in questioning and in a positive way, what can empower me in a different way that I'm not used to think about, I'm not used to experience, and yet would really enrich and expand who I am in my life. So we want to be as the one that comes next to, after Beethoven, the musician. So what's next for me if I am too comfortable here, for example?
no, you're not setting the standard very high, Barbara. Just Beethoven. It's okay. We understand.
Well, for setting the standard to Beethoven, then there is a lot of room for everybody from
All right. So now that you've helped people try to kind of understand what the story is, and whether it's empowering, or they want to shift it, or they want to change the acting or invest a little more or change the direction, then we go to relationships, right? So now, how is that story affecting or impacting the relationship? Let's begin with self. Now,
Yes.
what does that mean, and how does one, not only gauge but build a relationship with self? And
So first of all, let me just point out, what does relationship actually mean?
okay,
And allow me to use Latin. The word relationship comes from Latin, and it comes from res ligere, and it means to link things together. So when we are in a relationship, when we accept to be in a relationship, it means that we accept at some level to be linked together with somebody else, which means that there is a choice at the base. right? Even if I just happen to know you and I decide to get involved at some level with you, I am accepting that I want my life to be linked to yours. I don't need to marry you. I can be a friend to you, or I can be an acquaintance that meets you once a month, right? Or once every 6 months. But at some level, I accept that my life, my story, and who I am is somehow linked together to who you are, who I believe you are, and what you are doing, what you represent. So there is an acceptance and a decision that somehow we are going to be linked and connected. These are relationships. And the relationships become extremely important because we want to be deciding at which level am I connected with you, right? And this is in relation to our family members, as it is with our friends, as it is with our business partners or colleagues or customers, right? And then there is the relationship with myself.
Yeah.
And why is it important to talk about it? And why is it important to think about it? Because unless we have a healthy, and before being healthy, a relationship at all with ourselves, it becomes very difficult to have meaningful connections and deeper relationships with others. Because the first other that we need to be connected and in relationship with is ourselves. So if I avoid everything that has to do with me because it is painful, it is strange, I don't know what it is about, I'm always focused on what's outside. So my business, opportunities, events I am involved with, anything that can be on the outside and not inside of me. If I'm always projected there and I live there and I never look at myself, very, very difficult. It will be very difficult to have relationships that are meaningful and that can bring something to my life and to whom I can also contribute. So I do need to be capable of relate to myself, which means to learn who am I, to learn, again, the story. Here is the link. What is the story I'm telling myself about myself and my life? Where are areas where I can be a better person? What do I have to learn? How can I grow into a better version of myself? So these relationships, these insights that I want to start having with myself are really important, because then if I am capable to seeing myself, accepting who I am with all my strength and with all my weaknesses or areas of improvement, then when I connect with you and I accept to be in relationship with you, so having to do with you, somehow I am able to connect with you at the level of depth, I would say, I am able to connect with myself. I don't know if you have
So
experience.
I'm just saying, so you're saying if I have taken the time, the energy, and the resources to connect within and do that work, I will then be capable of doing it with you. Is it because of that experience? Is that because of that thing? Or is it that I'm showing up with basically no ammo? Like, I want you to go a little further just to
Yeah,
understand.
sure. Let's say that I am a person that is somehow scared to feel what it means to be me. And therefore I distract myself constantly with anything else. I read books, I listen to the news, I talk to people about holidays. There is a first level, I call it a first level of connection, right? So when I meet you, the level at which I will feel comfortable and I will engage with you will be at the same level. I will ask you about your clothes, where you go shopping, what books do you read, and I will stay there because I cannot go deeper, because I don't know how to go deeper, because I've never done it with myself. So you do need an emotional ability to connect and relate with people, right? So if I don't want to face whoever I am as a person, it is very difficult that I will give myself permission to connect with you at a level of depth that is deeper than just this first level of exchange of information that we have 1 hour together. And that usually it happens when you are introduced or somebody is introduced to you the first time you meet, right? You somehow check the person. But then, but then, when you move forward and you meet again and again, if you're not done your inner work, it becomes very difficult and frustrating to build this relationship. Having said that, you can become also a tool for me to go deeper.
Okay.
Mm. Nonetheless, then I will have to do the work of building the relationship with myself.
So walk me through. If I wanted to start that exercise and I hadn't done the work, what would be some suggestions that you would provide for people
Yeah.
to begin that process, or even, yeah, to begin? I know we're going to go into deepening that process later, but at least begin the process.
Yeah. Well, I would say that the very, very first step to begin the process is at least being capable of noticing.
Okay.
Because in the example that I said before, I am distracting myself from what I feel. This, and sometimes just noticing that I feel uncomfortable doing something or being in a certain environment or being part of certain conversation, just noticing the feeling is a first step. It is the first step. And just notice, because by noticing what you are doing, you are really turning towards yourself and you are looking at yourself for a few moments. The capacity to observe your feelings and feel those feelings increase the more you do it, because that's a muscle, right? It is an emotional muscle. So the first step I would say is notice feelings. Let's start with feelings, right? Notice how you feel when you are in a happy state, when you are a sad state, and just stay with those feelings for a little while, as much as you can. Could be 5 seconds, okay, 5 seconds, but make a pause there and connect with those feelings. That is the first door. Imagine a series of doors. That's the first one.
Yeah.
That could give you access to that. And usually these emotions become more visible when we are interacting, right? Because the richness and the wealth of people, of the presence of people, is that they are like mirror, and they allow us to see us more than we would do when we are alone. So this, I would say, would be the very first step.
Now, what's behind door number 2, Barbara? Now we're playing a game.
When we are behind door number 2, there are several doors, but let's talk about some doors. So once we have opened door number 1 and we have paused with that, then what we want to dare to do is to start sharing, meaning opening up with someone. Right? It might be the person that I have just met. Why not? I share a little bit and make an effort to go beyond my comfort zone. Mm? And I experiment. I think that the key word is to experiment, especially for those individuals that are not used to this and don't see maybe the value in doing this. They see more that it is, they could say, well, that's a waste of time. I'm fine with myself. I don't need any of this stuff. I say, well, give it a try, exactly because your reaction to it so strong, to me, is already an indication that perhaps it will bring you so much if you paused in that reaction, for example, and stay there. And then you start sharing, be in it, even share about your frustration of having to do this, right? Because everybody is rich enough to have at least 1 or 2 people we can share something with. And then after that, what we want to start to look into, and we go into deepening our relationship and our capacity and ability to relate, is to start to notice the quality of our sharing. What are we actually talking about? And the more we do it, the more we feel free to be vulnerable and feel free to actually express something about ourselves. We choose the person with whom we want to start this process. I'm not saying that we pick anybody that just passes by, right? Of course, there is a choice, and we bet on someone and on some relationships, right? But we want to become capable of opening up, which means to have a level of vulnerability, exposing some of our shortcomings, because part of the story we tell ourselves, I would say there is always the percentage that says that we are perfect. We are so good at this and that, right?
Uh-huh.
So being vulnerable means also to admit that actually we are imperfect beings, that we do not always take the perfect steps or make the perfect actions. And so to admit that, we need to have done that work, turn towards ourselves, feel our discomfort or how happy we are for certain things, noticing, stay there, and then begin the process of sharing. And the process of sharing is an opening, it is a big portal into who we are and into our possibility of expanding who we are.
All right.
We
So
are basically at doors 5, 6, or 7 already now.
already, okay. Those are multiple doors.
There are
Okay.
multiple doors, yes.
So the depth of the sharing, the quality of the sharing. So now I've begun this process. I'm starting to get comfortable. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm assuming this is part of the relationship with others, right? Because if you're starting to share, you're
Yes,
linking to the next step, which is relationship with others and
yes,
really relating, right? Now,
yes.
maybe walk us through a little bit of what that means and what that entails and how can,
Yes,
why does it matter? Why does it even matter?
yes. Well, relating with others, it matters because we do need others to be happy, to be healthy, to be fulfilled. Even if it is one person or two people, we do need to be with others. So the ability to relate just for the happiness of our life, it is a must. Develop the capacity and the ability to relate even in business. And you know better than I do for your experience. And in business, you do need to be able to connect in a certain way, build a trust, and actually relate in a way that business is also enhanced and flourishes, right? So relationship are part of who we are. Relating to others is part of who we are profoundly, and so we cannot avoid it. I think that we are in the wrong if we think that we can avoid become great at relating with people, because it enhances the quality of our life. But relating and building relationships is adding a layer of complexity, because if we have not done our inner work, if we are not created an inner transparency towards ourselves, in the sense of we know how we work and therefore how we can master ourselves, it is very difficult. Then we are free to relate with others in a way that enhances both who I am and who you are and what we want to achieve. And so the inner work we talked about before needs to be done to have that clarity inside that allow us to be free to relate with you, which means I am free to actually listen to you. I am not preoccupied with who I am, what I feel, uh, how do I look like. I
So there's
am
space. There's space.
I am creating inner space, and I am creating a kind of a generative emptiness where I am able to welcome who you are without judgment as much as possible, without assumptions. I am creating a space for you to express yourself. And I am free to listen to you at a generative level, at empathic level, without imposing on you and who you are my movie, my narrative, my stories, and my assumptions. And that's when I see you. I am so transparent that I'm not a barrier to myself and I can see you. And that's why it becomes extremely important in relationships, and especially in family relationship, in relationship with our siblings, with our cousins, with our parents, because they are there since ever, right? And we definitely have already a picture of them, and we know who we are when they are there. But that knowledge is our story, which is limited, and it is not making us transparent. So it becomes extremely challenging in family relationships because we need to really free ourselves from our narratives and what we believe about you. Even if I am your brother and I've been with you for 30 years, of course I know you. And I would say, of course you don't, because you have never been curious apart from what you have shown me. You, my brother, have shown me, right? And so it is quite an interesting dynamic. So building and deepening relationship with our family members, it is a huge enterprise, I would say, and a challenge, because it requires an unpacking and making shine and transparent so many engines that are inside of me, that are inside of you, and that are part of the relationship. That
But
was a
is it,
long answer to your question.
well, we're going further and further along the road. So now my relationship, my brother, my parents, my children, my loved ones. Now you're saying there's layers and layers. Now, how do we work through that? How do we create that transparency? Is it because I'm afraid? Is it because I have something to defend? Is it because of expectations and impositions generationally? Like what is going on? Let's, maybe look at different scenarios. Like what's really going on?
You know, the first thing that I would say is that we are not curious beyond what we already think we know about our kids, our spouse, our brother, our sister, our parents. And I think that the first huge door on transforming and understanding and making this relationship more transparent, and therefore we can work better with them, is really to be curious. If I think that I already know you, or you are always the same, or you react always in the same way, you have been like that for 20 years, so that's it. Yes, that is the truth. That is the narrative that you have built for the past 20 years and you have lived in. So I I invite, instead of being curious, how can I see you that I know for 20 years, I've lived things together, events, etc. How do I see you as a new person? What is it that I am not noticing about you that is there? It's just that I need to refine my ability to see and feel and think about you. What is it that I can do differently so that you can show parts of yourself that I have actually never seen? Isn't it true that with some people you show a part of you, and with some other individuals you are completely different? When you are with your brother, you are in a way. When you are with a business partner, you are in a customer, you are in another way. That's always you. So I am your sister and I want to be curious. Okay, so where is that expression that is showing with the customer hidden when I am at home? So how do I find out all those facets, all those aspects of you that I see outside, I don't see at home? Where are you hiding them? How do I discover them? What do they tell me about you that could expand and enrich my experience of you? This work, we don't do it. We don't do it with ourselves. We don't do it with our family members. We do it more with potential clients. We do it more. We are curious and we want to learn more and more with people we do not know. So my invitation is, what would happen if you started looking at relationship, people in your life with whom you have been forever, and you don't even notice, not because it's a bad thing, even in a good thing, we just get along well. So what would happen if I start to become curious about you? What happened if I start to look at you from a different angle that I would never consider? What if I start looking at you as a gardener? What would be, for example, what would I notice about you?
You would be depressed about your garden. and the end result that it would look like when you wake up in the next season.
Exactly. For example, I will be terrible at gardening. My plants are always in need of something that I clearly don't give. So,
Okay, so I mean, I hear you. I mean, I wasn't. The boys were in Dubai, and I wasn't there. And for the first time, they had meals with, family member after family member after family member, and they all said that we got to see and experience and be able to relate in a way we haven't, because when you're there, it's different. So they were able to express or have a conversation where they got to see a side, or like you said, part of the boys that was not expressed, right? And the item that was different was the lack, what me not being there. So obviously there's a dynamic creating that maybe unwillingness, discomfort, whatever it is, right? Or overshadow, who knows what it is, right? But
and what it is, sorry if I intersect you there, what it is the habits. I've always seen you in this way. I've always thought of you in this way. What's going on here? And so what is this the usual way is what kept me comfortable or uncomfortable, for example, right? So we want to really be curious on, okay, so what's going on now? And now that I've seen this part and I have at least had a glimpse of it, here we go. We have opened the door and new questions can arise. And so you have a chance now to express that side, even when you are back with the boys in Dubai, for example. And that's how you have enriched new layer, a new part, and a new area of your life and of your relationship with them that before was kind of invisible. So we want to make visible and take the veil off of those parts because they are there. We are so much more than what we show and what we are aware of. So we want to take the veil off and really begin to do that. And we can do this if we are curious.
But I think that there's fear, right? Especially in terms of judgment, right? I mean, we talk about, we do a lot of work with families on working through the impositions, the expectations, and the judgments. And when I first say that, they look at me as if I'm speaking a foreign language, right? And then when you start going into that and they say, no, but I don't. But it's the unexpressed, right? I mean, I can tell you a story. I was sitting with a sibling, and one of the other siblings had become a specific in a specific field. I don't want to give details because some might recognize who these people are, and then it turned out that the coach called us while we were sitting there, saying that he's actually not good at that specific space. And we were like, wait a minute, why would you become, right? For example, let's say, an accountant when you're not good at math or in that space, right? And then it was the question was, why would you even go to that university, right? And the sibling was sitting in front and said, where else would we go? Because he went to the same university. And I was like, excuse me? And then I looked at the patriarch, and the patriarch looked at me and he said, I didn't say anything. And the son said, you didn't have to. So now we're talking about another level, right? Here we just spoke about the expressed.
Yeah.
So how about relating and helping us understand the unexpressed?
Yes. And again, you need to go back to the fact that even in your example, what you're talking about is a process of identification and differentiation. Who am I versus who is my family and my family tradition? And at first, this asserting who I am, and I am not the accountant that you expected me to be, it looks like a betrayal. It looks like I am letting my parents down, their expectations. And exactly there is a strength that can be built, which is not the strength of betraying or destroying, but it is the strength of being and becoming who I actually am to serve better than my family. So before moving forward, there is an impression that you need somehow to break something and move a little bit back. But then, in fact, you are preparing, you are identifying and distinguishing who you are from your family. And often the challenge here is that the family perceives this as a betrayal, as they are letting me down, they are not following. Look, I worked so hard, they have this business, look at that. And that's why it becomes an education of all parts. There is nobody betraying anybody there. is me wanting the freedom to express who I am fully so that I can bring those talents and that wholeness that is me to the family, maybe in different ways than what you have always thought for 20 years. Well, there is an element of surprise, and guess what? There is an element of integration and an element of something new and innovative that I can bring in. What's wrong with that? The challenge is that I am asking you to make, you family, you parents, you cousins, everybody that thought of me as an accountant, I am asking you to shift and be curious and be open. That means I'm asking you to change your expectation that you have been comfortable within for years. That's why relationship becomes important, because if I decide that I grow and I want to express fully who I am, you are impacted as my sibling, as my parents, as my family. And you are, and even if you don't want, you are on this journey. Because if you oppose to that, you are on my journey, because now you are opposing. And you do have to deal with that sense of I feel betrayed, I don't understand you. What are you doing? Why can you not just follow what has always been, right? I'm asking you to expand your way of experiencing who I am. And that's relationship are alive. We are really connected. And so
Well,
decisions.
the first generation in China would be not happy with your definition of alive, where they built all of these incredible old economy companies, and their children have studied abroad in the UK and the US and are coming back, and they barely want to even sit on the board of these old generation companies, old economy companies, and want to do something completely different, or someone to have nothing to do with it. So when they hear you say the relationship is alive, they might challenge your aliveness, Barbara.
Yes, and allow me to say to that that if you want your son or daughter or the second generation to continue in your foot, the continuation of your legacy goes through freedom. Because if you somehow, because you really care and you have built this amazing business and you want your child there, you want it so much that usually they feel that they are not free to choose. And so they can last a little bit. They can give you maybe 60% of their value, but it will never be what it could actually be, and for the business to flourish and for the person to flourish. So accept the ability to accept how to allow those young generation to be free, to explore who they are, express it, and then learn the value of the legacy. Then they will bring creativity and innovation. You need to be open to what that might be. They need to be helped in understanding and accompanied for sure, because they do have a responsibility towards themselves and their lives and the business and the family if they so choose. But the freedom is the condition, in my experience, for them to actually be able to embrace the family business. Let me give you an example. Um, I I had a client that was supposed to be an architect. An architect, because the family business was in the architecture field and it was going very well, etc. And when this person decided that was not going to be his future, he didn't fit there, he didn't feel like that. There was a big problem, a drama in the family. So what is happening now? Look at all that we have created, was going to be there, etc. And he stand its ground and they said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not for me. I am called to do something else. Fast forward 20 years later, the business is still up and running and going well. The person who chose not to become an architect keeps receiving blessings in terms of, luckily you decided not to be an architect. The building would be collapsing and you do not have the skill to be an architect. Math is not for you. And so now life told the truth that the person actually had the courage to stand by that truth when the person was young. right? So really there is value in what people that have done the inner work of discernment, they know what's right for them and what they can actually bring. As you were saying before, you don't want a person to be an accountant when they don't understand numbers, even if the family business is amazing. Would you? You are the business person. What would you say to that?
That would be a lot of suffering.
Exactly.
Numbers, not a numbers person. That would be torture every
Yeah.
day, every hour.
Yes. Allowing for freedom and trust within family systems actually brings potentially out the best for the people and the business.
Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of families, including ourselves, have created entrepreneurship funds to be able to create that freedom, right? But obviously, a lot of families still question, right, that ability, right? And when do you know, right? When you say you've done the discernment, you've done the inner work, right? What does that entail? What does that mean? It's very difficult to quantify because it's a qualify, right? It's subjective. So that's where the dance is, right? Between the knowing. Go ahead.
There is a dance, and in fact the decision is never a decision of one person, is a dynamic decision. So if I am free to talk to you and you are my father and you are my cousin and you are my uncle and we need to make business decisions, if I am free to be myself and express with you what I'm thinking, where I'm thinking I'm going, where I'm exploring where to go, then in our conversation, there will be a generative conversation where what I say and you give me your authentic, because you two have done the inner work and you don't want to impose on me what you would want. Or you say it, I would love it for you to be the CEO of our business. I see that it's not for you. So let's see. And you explore together. That's when innovation happens. That's when creativity happens. And that's when the possibility to work in the business actually shows up. Otherwise, it is just a rejection, a wall, and a no, and I'm going the other side to the other side of the world. So I feel safer.
But you're right. Today we're having, this is part of the Qineticare self-discovery, and we've created, as you're aware, the related, the relationship connectedness model, which is a 4-step process, which has come through that same conversation you spoke to, is that how can we as a family go through a process of introspection and reflection to be able to be in our authenticity and feel safe, to not be judged, not be imposed upon, and not expected upon, to begin that process and that conversation that you just spoke to. So that's, yeah, I mean, in the family dynamic side, it's an adventure, to put it politely.
It is an adventure, and if you allow me to say this, and I say it anyway, it is a
Should we mute you? No, just go ahead.
it is a possibility to find freedom, that freedom that allows for happiness, that allows for a joy, for creativity, collaboration, right? So it is definitely a path worthwhile walking, and you want to embark on this path because it is too important. After all, our happiness is based on the relationship we have. There's nothing else.
We're going to change the whole family dynamic title now. We're going to ask family dynamics, do you want to be really alive? Then the next one is do you want to be free at last? So we're going to change all this.
Free at last.
Yes, and then we'll put an asterisk and say, if you have any issues, please call Barbara.
Please.
Directly.
Yes.
All right, so we have about 10 more minutes. So let's talk about, how do we deepen these relationships? I know we obviously we are talking already about the imposition, the expectation, the judgment. So that's kind of cleaning out the as Catherine would say, the basement, right? Before it starts to seep up and starts to intoxicate the house, right? So what are, I mean, you've talked about curiosity, you've talked about reflection, awareness, all of that. What else can we do to?
I believe that you want to make a decision to invest time.
Okay.
invest time in, spend time with this person or with people you want to deepen your relationship. Start to build experiences together that are not only business experiences, but they can be meaningful experience. Could be, often we say, oh, I don't have time. Well, carving out 10 minutes, carving out 10 minutes that where the goal is actually to see you in a new way. I invite you for, I don't know, a tea, or I invite you to have a 10 minutes walk at lunchtime, or I invite you to in the middle of the morning to just meet and sit and just ask different questions. What would I know? What could I possibly not know about you? We have 10 minutes to discuss this. I decide that I want to deepen my conversation with you. I actually want to know you more, and I want you to know me more. So what about we meet and you tell me what I've never known? I'm sure that if you ask your brother or your sister, or even your parents, tell me something I don't know about you, there will be an answer there.
You may not want to know the answer, Barbara.
Well, and you know, it is a process.
Thank you. I'm glad it's a process. We don't have to empty the closet right away.
No, no.
Some of us have walk-in closets that are very large.
Yeah. Well, so simple. You might not know about me, for example, that I would love to record a music CD now.
Okay.
I would love to do that professionally. You might not know about me because there was never in our interaction anything that indicated that that could be something that I want to do.
Well, let's hope there's a music producer in the family business right now listening or going to listen later. And who knows, Barbara, you might get we might get an email and saying, we want Barbara in the house.
You see? You never know. Absolutely. So what is it? It doesn't need to be something that needs to be in the closet, something that maybe really there was never a chance, because how would you ever think about that? No, exactly. Because you don't. And so just ask, is there anything that I don't know about you that it is important for you? And it does not need to be I killed somebody or I want to whatever, right? Now to that extreme, of course, something simple that deepen my knowledge of you. And from that question, then next time you speak with me, you say, so Barbara, have you met somebody? And I say, yes, I went to a producer and I'm actually recording in a beautiful studio. And here we go. A new area of my life will be shared with you. And I think that that's something simple that we can do. One question, 10 minutes. Choose the person with whom you want to do that. Because somehow at some level you say, he is interesting. Let me put some energy, time, effort to do that.
So that comes off as respect, or that comes off as curiosity, that comes off as I care, I love. What is the message subconsciously and consciously that's going in all realms, energetically,
I would say that it is I care. Because the first element that will move me to know you better, and it is, I care enough to devote 10 minutes of my time, given that I say that I don't have time. And I assure you, after the 10 minutes, it will become half an hour and 1 hour and 2 hours, because you get interested and it will be exciting. And by the way, those are the conversations out of which then business opportunities and new ideas come out.
Yeah.
Right? And so as simple as 10 minutes, I care about you, or I have a friend or a family, a cousin. I'm sure there is more to her life or to his life than what I see. Let me care in a different way. Let me ask for 10 minutes and let me be curious but be curious. When I say be curious, I'm not saying that you are nosy of details.
I'm glad we came to that part. Well, I was worried that you become Pinocchio.
No, I really want to discover what makes you the unique, amazing, incredible cousin I have. So I choose to know more about you. I want to, or a friend. I love to do this with friends or business partners in a different setting. I think that that's feasible, even if you do, and if you cannot find 10 minutes, there is
First, I mean, with all due respect, if you said 10 minutes, I'd already feel bad that you're investing so little time. But anyways, we'll take that on the side.
It is for people that might listen, that might have never thought about it, and might have never given the value that it has. So better than nothing are even 10 minutes to ask the question and get an answer.
Yeah. No, but also again, changing context, right? So we started at Qineticare 4 or 5 weeks ago, started movement classes inside the office. We have a room that's like a kind of a meditation yoga studio. And it was incredible to see the expression between themselves that they had never seen before, sides of each other that they never imagined, because now they were in a different context, and were asked to relate to each other in a different form than they're used to, sitting on their desk or sitting in a meeting room. This is now physical movement, and actually the movement was the opposite. It was very slow, opposite of what they're used to. So it was kind of a tongue twister, but in a physical sense.
Yes. And in this sense, also be open to what you are not used to.
Yes.
Curiosity in the sense of, well, that's interesting, let me explore.
Yes.
How could that feel like? How could I react to that? What could that do to me that since I've never done it, or I never exposed myself to it, what would that be like for me? How does this enrich my life and who I am?
All right, we've got a couple minutes left. Anybody has any questions? And Barbara, anything that we didn't touch on that's burning to be expressed before we go to you sharing a few closing remarks that we'd like everyone to reflect on as they move through and continue their journey of life?
Let me bring the closing remark now before the question, if there are any, which is basically just one, which is, what do I actually need in my life, in my relationship, in my intimate relationship, that I feel is not there? Can I have the honesty and the clarity to identify and to give myself permission to say it to myself? What do I actually need? And give it the actual name authentically to what I need. Because if I do need to spend more time with you, I then need to learn, how do I tell you?
How do I ask?
How do I ask for it? Right? So the first, before we open the doors, line of doors, would be, wait a minute, what do I actually need? And if I don't know that,
yes, that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
How can I find out? Who can help me? Let me ask for help to identify and get clear and start that cleaning clarity process of, okay, what do I actually need to be happier, to be more creative, to be more motivated, to be more fulfilled, to find my purpose that moves me? What do I actually need?
And in the assessment that you do, obviously that process begins, but I think in the pathways you go deeper and deeper to really look at the needs versus the wants, and clarifying and learning to express and creating the courage, creating the possibility of that expression.
Yes, and how do we do that? Sorry that I...
Yeah, no, go ahead.
How do we do that? How do I actually express to you, to the other side, to the other person in front of me, to many people? How do I do that in a way that is helping me fulfill the needs and serve the others at the same time, and understand what's best for both of us, or for the family, for the group, and for the business? So how do I actually talk to you and feel free to express to you and to myself my needs?
All right, Barbara, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time we have spent together. And I'm going to, on my next family call, which is on Friday, going to be more curious to understand the conversations the boys had when they were in Dubai with the various family members who shared that they were able to connect at a level that they didn't have the opportunity to do so, and to be able to see a level of confidence, a level of humility and love that maybe was not expressed because I was in the room, or even if when their mother was in the room, which was the time before that. So thank you for reminding us. Thank you everyone for your time. And again, Barbara, bon appetit if you haven't had your lunch. I assume you have, it's 2 o'clock.
No, I
And
haven't.
okay, so bon appetit. Oh, you're Italian, I forgot. Italian, Spanish, we understand. Huh? So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. We're going to switch a little. From 6, we're going to go straight to 8 and then go back to 7. So next week we have Mikra that's going to talk about genomics and epigenetics and what is nature versus nurture and how that impacts our nutrition, our fitness, our sleep, and supplements. And then we will have Jonathan the week after, who's going to speak about living in alignment, what you started to speak about, right? Between my values, my talents, and my aspiration. Am I living in truth? Am I living in an authentic state? So thank you again, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, wherever you are. If it's Hong Kong, good night. And for the rest of you, good afternoon. All right. See you next week. Ciao.